Good evening. Investigators are hoping the pilot of a float plane that crashed off Saturna Island, killing 6 people, can tell them what happened. The Sea Air de Havilland Beaver went down Sunday afternoon just after taking off from Lisle Harbor. There were 8 people on board. Only the pilot and one of the passengers survived. Among the dead are a Vancouver doctor and her baby. And tonight we learn of the heroic efforts of the local people on the island, some of whom were in the pub nearby watching the Grey Cup game as they went rushing out in their boats to try to rescue as many as they could, getting 2 survivors. A news reporter, Mary Beth Burton, joins us with more. Mary Beth.
Hudson, Saturna Island, a small community of just about 300 people, is in mourning tonight. Locals say last evening's crash was the largest tragedy the island has ever faced, and they faced it bravely and united. Lisle Harbor off Saturna Island became both a rescue and recovery site when a Sea Air Beaver float plane crashed while attempting to take off at about 4 yesterday afternoon.
We saw the float plane take off, but it's a normal occurrence and we didn't pay too much attention to it. But right after that, we heard someone say it crashed.
A pilot and 7 passengers were aboard.
This is the most severe tragedy that's ever happened on the island.
The plane sank quickly in a matter of minutes, but there were survivors.
2 people were recovered in part by the locals in the area who jumped into their boats and zoomed into the area, along with Coast Guard auxiliary assets that were coming back from training happened to be in the area as well.
The pilot and female passenger were pulled from the water in about 15 minutes thanks to the quick response of locals, many of whom were watching the Grey Cup at a nearby pub.
And within 30 seconds, everybody was running out of the pub and over to the dock.
Yesterday, 2 people were saved thanks to the totally selfless and immediate response of people who live here on this island.
It would be safe to say that there were certainly some heroic actions that were taken by those local citizens.
Dale Devert, a local fisherman, was coming home from Salt Spring Island with the day's catch. He joined the search at about 5 p.m.
Went out off the freighter out here, off those 2 islands, did a grid that way, grid back, grid this way.
The search for more survivors continued all night. These viewer pictures show a Buffalo aircraft from Comox's 442 squadron lighting up the night sky with flares. Divers were called out, and 6 bodies were found in the plane's fuselage at about 1 a.m. The RCMP say the victims are 41-year-old Kerry Telford Morrissey and her 6-month-old daughter, Sarah. Dr. Morrissey was a Vancouver GP who specialized in maternity care. She also did a lot of volunteer work in Peru.
She was a presence. She uplifted the whole mission. She uplifted us, she uplifted the community, she uplifted the hospital, and people just loved her.
The other victims are 55-year-old Catherine White-Hallman, 60-year-old Thomas Glenn, 49-year-old Richard Haskett, and 44-year-old Cindy Schaefer. Schaefer and Haskett have a cottage on Saturna and were part owners of the Lighthouse Pub.
They were both extremely vivacious, vibrant people.
Sea Air operates daily flights from the Gulf Islands to Vancouver and from Nanaimo to the mainland. The offices in Nanaimo and Vancouver were closed. All operations suspended today out of respect for the victims of the crash. Sea Air says it has operated accident-free for 28 years. This is the plane, a de Havilland Beaver aircraft. The company says the pilot had been flying with Sea Air for 3 years. The Vancouver Island Health Authority confirms both the pilot and the female passenger who survived the plane crash are in Victoria General Hospital in stable condition. The survivors have not been named. The Transportation Safety Board plans to have a barge off Saturna tomorrow to recover the plane. The TSB has yet to interview the pilot, whom they hope will have the answers to what led to the tragic loss of 6 lives. Now, the TSB says visibility was good at the time of the crash, and they admit while it was windy in Saturna Island off the Lisle Harbor, they say no more windy than usual for this part of BC, so they're not sure that weather was a factor in the crash. Now, the RCMP are hoping to hear from some of those local heroes that we spoke to tonight who might be in need of victim services. And more on Dr. Telford Morrissey. She is survived by her husband Patrick and a 2-year-old daughter Claire. The clinic where Morrissey was working at says she was a clinical instructor at UBC and volunteered at the Peruvian Jungle Hospital for 5 years in a row, Hudson, and for 3 months at a time. An incredible woman. We also heard from the Canadian missionary who runs that hospital. He sent me an email just a short time ago, and he said that his prayers are with both Patrick and Claire tonight, and he says that the pictures of Kerry and her babies hang in their emergency room door. They have not forgotten her.
All right, Mary Beth Burton reporting. Mary Beth, thank you.
Thank you.